Hey y'all, what's up? I hope you are well. My name is Patricia, your born and raised small town girl, here to remind you that the unthinkable can happen anywhere. Welcome back, guys, and if you are here for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. So, I haven't posted an episode in a while. I've had some things going on with my health, and for those of you that don't know me in real life, I struggle with some pretty serious chronic illnesses, and it has been rearing its ugly head lately. It's been a mess. So I hope that you will forgive me for the delay. And also, I wanted to let you guys know that I'm about to do either a 5 or 6 part series on some young ladies that went missing from Route 29 and their stories, because that is actually close to where I live, and these stories have been prevalent in my life, and I really think that they all deserve to have their story told. And there is a little bit of hypothesis that there's maybe more people involved and that this is like a organized type of thing. So I'm going to go over all of their stories, and I'm going to let you guys decide if you think this is a more organized thing or just happenstance that they all went missing from around the same area. So stay tuned for that. I will be dropping the first episode, Alexis Murphy. I'm hoping by next week. I have the research done for it, and I'm working on writing out how I want to tell it to you guys right now. Now on to today's case. Tyrone, Missouri is a small no-stoplight town 90 miles east of Springfield with a population of about 50. There are no restaurants, stores, or even a school. The remote area, consisting of mainly mobile homes and small houses, was rocked to its core in February of 2015. At 10:15 p.m. on February 27, 2015, a 15-year-old Tyrone resident called 911 from a neighbor's house. The neighbor, who wished not to be named, said she was barefoot in a nightgown with no sleeves and her legs were scratched up from the briars. The teen told the neighbor she saw a man in her dad's bedroom, talking to him in a normal voice. She then heard gunshots and screaming, which is what made her run to the neighbor's house. She was terrified and unaware of the state of her parents. She just knew she had to get help. I cannot imagine being that young and hearing that going on and trying to decide what to do next. Like, I guess her first inclination was to run to her neighbor's house and to get away to save herself and to get help for her parents. The local police rushed to the scene of the call. At the same time, another 911 call came in at 10:36 p.m. from Martha Shriver, reporting another shooting at a home not far from the original call. She explained her and her husband had both been shot. One shooting, let alone 4 shooting victims, was completely unheard of in this area. But unfortunately, that wasn't even half of the destruction done in the small town that night. While on the way to the other 2 scenes, police were flagged down by a man named John Shriver outside of Carrie and Valeria Shriver's home. John said he had just found Carrie and Valeria Shriver dead in their home. He told them that a relative, Martha Shriver, who had been the second 911 call, called him and explained to him that she and her husband had just been shot, and this made her concerned about her son, Carrie. So she called John and asked him to go check on her son and his wife. John told the police he knocked on the door and opened it to holler in to see if anybody would answer. When no one answered, he walked in to find Carrie and Valeria unresponsive on their bedroom floor. He ran outside to find police responding to the other calls and waved them down to tell them what he had just found. Police were shocked. Now they were dealing with 3 different crime scenes within a few miles of each other. Because of this, police started going door to door to check on all the residents in that area. This led them to finding 2 more victims deceased from apparent gunshots. At this point, 7 people were deceased and 1 was injured. The teen's parents, Gerald, who went by D, and his wife Julie, Carrie and Valeria Shriver, Harold, who went by Weasel, and his wife Janelle, and lastly, Martha's husband, Daryl Shriver, were all gone. In a matter of minutes, Martha lost her husband, son, and daughter-in-law. Not only that, the teen lost both of her parents. That is so heartbreaking. Who would do this? They were all family. What would cause someone to go on a door-to-door shooting spree in such a small town? Once police are able to speak with Martha, she tells them, quote, "Daryl and I were laying in the bedroom watching the 10 o'clock news, and all of a sudden someone started hollering behind the house, 'Help me, help me, help me.' I thought it was our son. I thought something must be wrong. End quote. She said her husband then let in Joseph Jesse Aldridge and asked him how he could help him. Then she said all of a sudden Joseph pulls out a gun and starts shooting at Daryl, saying, "You deserve this." Now police had a name and the search began for Joseph Jesse Aldridge. Joseph Jesse Aldridge, who was 36 at the time, lived with his mother, Alice Aldridge, who had been struggling with cancer. Supposedly, he lived with her so he could take care of her. However, upon arriving at her house, the police found her dead as well. She was on the couch under a pile of blankets. According to the autopsy, she died from her cancer diagnosis, but many speculated that Joseph might have killed her too. There is no proof of this, but I can see why it was speculated, especially with the pile of blankets. Like, what was that for? Finding Miss Aldridge's deceased led investigators to initially believe that Joseph finding his mom deceased is what led him going door to door killing his family members. Coroner Tom Whitaker said, quote, "We're speculating that he came home and found her deceased and then for whatever reason went on a rampage and started killing people." End quote. Joseph was found in the early morning hours of February 28, 2015. His truck was found in Summersville, Missouri, about 15 miles from Tyrone. It was in the middle of a 2-lane highway still running outside of a local goat ranch. Joseph was inside, deceased from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot. In the truck with Joseph's body, police found guns, knives, a black skull mask, a Budweiser in the cup holder, and an empty bottle of Evan Williams whiskey. It wasn't making sense. Joseph had been described as a quiet person who didn't interact with others much. He had never been known to be violent and had only been in trouble with the law one time. In 2008, he pled guilty to possessing a firearm while using marijuana. He served a 21-month sentence and was released. That is when he moved in with his mom. Warren Barnes, the owner of the goat ranch that Joseph was found outside of, said that Joseph used to be good friends with his son. He said early in Joseph's life, he was a quiet person who didn't have a good home life. Quote, "He was quiet, nice, didn't get into fights in school, stuff like that." End quote. He explained that his son had quit hanging out with Joseph about a year before the shootings because he was involved in drugs, began acting strange, and saying off-the-wall stuff. Joseph's older sister said growing up, he liked to read and hang out in the woods. Aldridge was described as the kid in middle school that liked to play with knives on the bus, which is terrifying. He was held back in high school, which added to his quiet nature. Former teachers and peers described him as quiet, while some others described him as arrogant. Isn't that a weird contrast? Some people say he's quiet and some people say he's arrogant. They said he was bullied, wore a long black trench coat, and liked dark themed things. Art was his favorite class. Quote, "He was more on the fringe but not like an outcast. He was always quiet, reserved, and kind of shy." End quote. Aldridge worked for short periods of time at the flooring mill, grocery store, and a natural gas company, but it was said he mainly mooched off of his mother. Could finding his mother deceased really be the catalyst that would cause a person who was described as a recluse and had no history of violence to snap like that? Aldridge's uncle said he had been feuding with one of the victims for more than a year. So was this pent-up rage? The community didn't know how this could happen. Nothing of this magnitude had ever occurred in this town. Several prominent individuals came out with statements. Highway Patrol Sergeant Jeff Kinder said, quote, "Everybody is in disbelief now. They're shocked. They will all just take care of each other, but it has just shocked this community to its core, and we will just have to work our way through it." End quote. Missouri Governor Jay Nixon said, quote, "This is a horrific tragedy, and our hearts go out to the victims of these senseless acts and their family." Mayor Don Tottingham said, quote, "This is a terrible tragedy in a community that's really close-knit. This is a great town, and this is why it's such a tragedy, because it shows you are vulnerable to things." End quote. Local pastor Terry Brown said, quote, "They were hardworking people who were reserved. They would help other people in the community with anything, and they would not charge them money for it. It means they were friends. They liked being that small, rural environment in which everybody knows everybody, and many of them were related to one another." End quote. I think the community wanted to believe this could never have been a planned attack. However, after police began digging in and investigating, a written-out plan that Joseph had made weeks prior to the horrible tragedy surfaced. That leads me to have so many more questions, which of course starts with Why? Why would he want to harm so many people in his family? Does this mean he did kill his mom as well? Or was this what he planned for when she passed, knowing she had cancer and it was inevitable? Tragically, we will never have these answers because everyone who knows is deceased and Joseph didn't leave any type of suicide letter. We will always want answers, especially for tragedies like this. Unfortunately, sometimes those answers never come. Sometimes the pieces just don't fit and never will. Before ending this case, I want to take time to remember the victims of today's case. Gerald D. Aldridge was 52, and he loved the outdoors. He worked in heating and cooling. Julie Aldridge was 47, was a nurse, and she was a devout Seventh-day Adventist. Harold Weasel Aldridge, who was 50, worked in a wood flooring factory, and his wife Janelle, who was 48, was disabled due to a previous car accident. The two of them had just got back together and started working on their relationship after some time apart. Carrie Shriver was 46 and was known for being able to build anything. Valeria Shriver was 44. She had achieved the highest honor as a Girl Scout and graduated cum laude from what is now Missouri State University. Their 13-year-old son was asleep in the home when they were shot and was completely unharmed. He didn't even hear the attack. So he, like the teen girl who originally called 911, lost both of his parents that night. Darrell Shriver, who was Carrie's father and Martha's husband, was 68. He and Martha owned 1,200 acres in Texas County and ran the largest business in the area. Alice Aldridge was 74. I couldn't find much about her except that she very much babied Joseph. I wish there was more info I could give y'all. I wish this was all wrapped in a neat little bow with way more answers. My heart goes out to the kids and the families left behind. Let me know what y'all think. Do you think he planned this knowing his mom was going to pass? Or do you think the plan included her too? I want to thank you all so much for listening. Please subscribe so you will be notified when new episodes drop. Also, please give your girl a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at This Doesn't Happen Here on Instagram and Facebook, and at This Doesn't Happen on TikTok. Also, if you have time and you are on a platform that allows you to leave a review, would you please leave your girl a review? It helps push the content out there to other people, and it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. Until next time, remember, evil doesn't have city limits, and this does, in fact, happen here.